I broke up with my boyfriend that I was living with in Manchester and I moved back to Ireland. You have to do what Charli XCX tells you to do. Yeah, I love Dolly Parton, obviously. She plays guitar and writes her own songs and has big boobs. Irish talent is so amazing, but why did it happen?
Vous l'avez peut-être reconnu, CMAT est à l'origine de la Macarena Walk, la danse féministe de l'été, cette choré ultra virale sur TikTok qui se danse sur son tube Take a Sexy Picture of Me. CMAT est sans doute l'une des chanteuses les plus cool qu'on ait rencontrées. Drôle, généreuse, maligne, d'une créativité dingue, et en plus, elle est irlandaise. Bon ok, on avoue, on voudrait trop être sa pote. Mais elle est déjà bien trop loin pour nous puisque Charli XCX, oui, Charli XCX, a propulsé sa carrière en lui donnant un conseil pour le moins original.
Well, she told me to go back home, which is really funny. She told me to go back home. I met her at like a fan songwriting kind of like focus group thing, and she played like a lot of unreleased music. And me and her got talking because I was really critical of some of the music, and I was quite like, the bridge on this one doesn't work properly, and I was like really going in on it. I was 22. I think I was 22, so this is like 7 years ago. I mean, I didn't know it was brave. I thought that's what we were there to do, but apparently not. And she kind of spoke to me afterwards and was like, what are you doing? You seem like you know lots about music. You're very knowledgeable. Like, are you making any music at the moment? And at the time I wasn't. I was like, no, I'm just like in between. Like my band ended and now I don't know what to do. And she was like, well, where are your friends? And I was like, some of them are in Ireland and some of them are in London. And she was like, why are you in Manchester then? I was like, because I'm poor. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And she basically told me to go back home. She was like, you should move back home and be around people who you make music with. And like, really just focus in on it and try to give as much time to it as possible, because otherwise you're not going to be inspired to do anything. And I literally moved back home because she told me to. I broke up with my boyfriend that I was living with in Manchester and I moved back to Ireland. Well, she told me to. She told me to. So you have to do what Charli XCX tells you to do. And now I'm a pop star, so great. Yeah, it was a good one.
And you said I always knew I was a pop star, but nobody else believed me. You said that. So where can you find the strength to believe in your dreams when, if others don't encourage you?
I would say delusion. Delusion helps. No, I mean, I don't know. I was very, like, the reason that nobody believed I was a pop star is because I came from a village in Ireland and the rest of my family are nurses and we're like working class normal people. So being a pop star was not on the cards. And like, I didn't even know anyone who played an instrument until I was like 13. So it wasn't that anyone was being mean to me. They were just like, this is out of the question. This isn't what people like us do. And
you feel it in your heart, like you can be that.
I just knew. I don't know what to. It's very confusing when I think about it now, but I don't think I ever doubted that this is what I was going to end up doing. Like, even when I was like 5, I just thought I was going to be a pop star because I loved to sing so much and I loved to perform and I loved like showing off in front of people. And I think songwriting always went hand in hand with it as well, because I think I'm more of a songwriter than I'm a pop star. I love to say pop star because it's funnier, but like I feel like what I am is a songwriter. I remember being 6 years old and crying when I found out that Britney Spears didn't write her own songs, because I was really confused. I was like, what do you mean? You're supposed to be expressing yourself and your emotions all the time. Like, why would anyone else ever write your songs? I don't get it. And I think it was just a vocation, I guess. And I always made sure I was doing it. I don't think there's ever been a period in my life where I like stopped properly. Sometimes I made bad music. I went through periods of making music that was bad because I was trying something different that wasn't working, but I don't think I ever stopped. And I don't even know if it's about self-belief as much as it's about like persistence and trying to do the thing that you enjoy. I didn't believe that I was going to become famous necessarily. I didn't believe that I was going to like, you know, I don't know. It was just always the thing that I had to do. You just do it.
And Charli XCX believed in you.
She believed in me. She believed in me when I was working in TK Maxx. So that means something.
You said that your new single, Take a Sexy Picture of Me, was written in response to being fat-shamed over your appearance at a festival. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah, it was actually a couple of festivals. So last year, I started touring with my band, and we would get recorded by like the BBC or RTE at these kind of bigger festivals, and they would post it on their social media, like a video of CMAT doing CMAT things. And the comments section would always flood with people being like, the BBC is promoting cellulite again, like, remember when pop stars used to be good looking, like, da-da-da-da-da, she looks like a pig, didn't realize Miss Piggy had a singing career. All these crazy, creative, but crazy comments. People just... There was one incident at the BBC Radio One Big Weekend where, like, there was 1,000 comments in less than an hour of, like, vomit emoji, and, like, people just hating what I looked like and how I dressed and what I was doing. And I was quite intoxicated by it. I thought it was cool because I thought it was quite punk rock in the sense that I wasn't doing anything other than wearing clothes and people were incensed and outraged. And so I was kind of like, hee hee ha ha, I love it, for a while. And then it did start to affect me, obviously. But more what I realized was that this wasn't specific to me. This is something that is happening across the board on social media, across all platforms, to all women in every walk. So like I was like, you know, I have to just suck it up because I'm in the public eye and people are going to be critical, and it is what it is. But actually, even if you're just a woman that is present on social media and you're like posting a video of yourself with your friends, some random person might still come into your comment section and criticize your appearance and say that you shouldn't exist. And once that landed, I became very angry and annoyed, and I tried to make a very, very uncomfortable song that would make people feel uncomfortable with themselves if they heard it. And I made it really poppy and fun so that they wouldn't know. And it was like a Trojan horse, like just kind of going in onto the radio, trying to make people uncomfortable with themselves, because I thought that would be cool.
It is.
Thank you.
People say that you are the Dublin's answer to Dolly Parton. Did it please you?
Yeah, I love Dolly Parton, obviously. She plays guitar and writes her own songs and has big boobs. She's like the best person alive.
And what leads you to country music, which is in the mind of most of the people from the south of United States, with cowboys and stuff?
Yeah.
And you're from Dublin, so...
I am from Dublin. Country music has always been very popular in Ireland. And when I was growing up in particular, there was a bit of a craze of like Johnny Cash, in particular. Like he was very popular in and amongst older Dublin people. And everybody was talking about him a lot at the time. And I really latched on to that film, Walk the Line, because I loved it. And then when I started kind of investigating music, I had like access to a laptop when I was like 10 or 11 or something. I would just like go on Wikipedia and be like, Johnny Cash albums, and then illegally download them one by one. And then I would go, lock me up. And then Dolly Parton Wikipedia albums, illegally download them one by one. I just started really taking it all in. And this was around the time as well of like Taylor Swift's early work being really popular with teenage girls. And I was fascinated by her and I loved that music as well. So I just kind of made it my genre. I think I always was going to be a songwriter and I was always going to write songs. And I think every songwriter has to find their home base. You have to find your way of constructing songs that is your baseline entry level for how you do every emotion, and then you can kind of bring other things into it on top of that as you get older. But for me, simplicity, 3 chords, narrative storytelling, allegorical storytelling, and a really strong structure for a melody and chorus is still my baseline, and that all comes from country music. But that's me as a songwriter.
And what's the difference between country music from United States and country music from Ireland? I mean, it's fulfilled with dramatic sceneries and Guinness and mentality of Irish people?
Well, this is the question, because what I've dealt with in my career so far is going over to America and people not accepting that what I make is country music and saying that what I make is not country music, because country music as a genre is so tied into people's identities in the South, because country music was really, over the course of arguably the last 40 to 50 years, being co-opted by white Christian conservative, like working class culture in the South. And so they tied into their identity very strongly. And if anyone else kind of wants to come in and use it for self-expression, they think it's literally not allowed. And this is a conversation that's coming up a lot nowadays because country music is having this revival. And we had the Beyonce album where people were like, that's not country music, even though it doesn't make sense because it is country music. She's just making it modern by introducing new stuff to it. And it's the same with like a lot of artists that get a lot of criticism, like Margot Price and Orville Peck, and there's an amazing artist called Charlie XCX who I know gets it in the neck a little bit as well. A lot of people dealing with topics and structures and forms that the conservative kind of country music establishment doesn't want to let in because it messes with the program of their whole identity. And what's really interesting about it, particularly in the context of Ireland, is that country music originated as a melting pot music in the Appalachian Mountains in and around the 1800s. So you had Irish traditional music traveling over, you had the banjo arriving into that part of the world via the slave trade. It's like a West African instrument that was built via memory. It is very predominantly super inspired by like a lot of black music, a lot of West African music. And you have so much evidence of this, of the fact that country music is actually the original genre bending genre. It's like the original melting pot music. So for one group of people to try and like really hold on to it and say that this belongs to us just doesn't make any sense categorically. It's ahistorical. And I think that's why messing with it and genre bending it now feels so fun, because it really upsets people even though you're not doing anything. But as you say, now if you were to go to Nashville and look at all the bars on Broadway, predominantly owned by men, and the people selling tickets in the country music establishment are predominantly white men from the South, which is just, you know, it's interesting. I think it's really interesting. Everyone's allowed to make it, you know. I can't sit here and say that they're not allowed to make it either, but it's interesting what gets pushed up to the front and what is kind of being held back. And, you know, as you say, Beyonce winning a Grammy for it is particularly interesting, and I think is a really good sign of how she's opening it up to so many other people, because this is a woman who got it really badly in the neck from the country music establishment in 2016 when she brought the Dixie Chicks out, or the Chicks out, at the Country Music Awards. Like, people walked out and people were like fuming at this woman for taking ownership of it. And it's funny because she's from Texas, which they say is where country music comes from. So I was like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I have a strange question, but have you ever met Paul Mescal? Because I don't know, have you noticed that Ireland is conquering the world, speaking of culture?
Yes, I have noticed. It's actually a big kind of factor in my new album, because I think that there's this weirdly romantic, idealized version of Ireland being pushed to the front, but actually it's quite a difficult country to grow up in. And I've been already getting it in the neck this year in the press in Ireland a little bit, and I've been called like unpatriotic and stuff for like pointing out that it's a difficult place to grow up.
Journalists are talking about a green wave from Ireland.
Yeah.
With movies, cinema, Sally Rooney, all of that people, even in fashion, even in...
Yeah, and what's interesting about the green wave is that as a result, for example, the American Western media is like, wow, Ireland is this magical, amazing place that's so magical, amazing. I have to go there, I have to visit there. Why does good art happen in one go? Because it's born of struggle and pressure. And all of the people that we're talking about all would have grown up under somewhat difficult circumstances. So like, you know, everything Sally Rooney is dealing with in her novels, she's dealing with like, and I was in Trinity for 6 months as well, like she's talking about a university culture that is quite oppressive towards women, and a culture that's quite oppressive towards women, and how difficult it is to navigate like interpersonal relationships in that way, right? That's a very thing born of Ireland. All these amazing actors are coming through like, you know, community programs, and like, you know, like I know Barry Keoghan grew up in like the flats in Dublin and stuff. J.W. Anderson as well, like, is gay, and he's dealing with the gay Irish identity. Like there's all of these people, all these famous people that are making brilliant work all at the same time, all actually had a really hard time growing up. From that seems to be the common thread between all these Irish people. And so it's interesting then that everybody's like, what a magical, amazing place, I'd love to go there. It's like, actually we're all trying to tell you something, and this is all happening at the same time, and we're all coming through at the same time, and this should be telling us something about the culture. I just think people aren't questioning it enough. For me, and this is what I deal with on the record, the economic crash happened in 2008. So I was 12. And what happened to the country in the wake of that was abysmal, was horrific. Like there was this huge poverty that just happened almost instantaneously overnight as a result of a conservative Irish government. There was a really sharp uptake in like male suicide as a result of people like losing their homes and losing all their savings. There was a complete wipeout of like the Catholic Church happening at the same time. There was suddenly this country that had been so affluent for like 20 years in the Celtic Tiger suddenly overnight lost all of its public funding and all of its services. And we are the generation that all just had to like grow up under that. And it was really intense, and it was not normal. And like, you know, I moved to England. I started emigrating as soon as I could. And, you know, I was always like leaving the country to try and get away from it because it just felt like a very difficult place to live. And
even in rights, I mean, the woman abortion.
Yeah, it was only legalized in 2018, and it had to go to a public vote, which is something that people don't take into consideration. Is there was a year or 2 years where I was living in Ireland, and every day on the radio I had to hear someone debate, for the sake of public balance, why a woman should not be allowed to have an abortion under any circumstances, even in the event of her death. That was the news, and that was the public discussion every day for 2 years. And I was like 20 to 22. And before that, we had the gay rights referendum, which was there was no gay marriage in Ireland. And instead of like every other country in the world, instead of just overturning it because it's an archaic law, we had to send it to a public vote. So there was 2 years in the Irish press where every queer person had to listen to the news every single day, people debating as to why gay people should not be allowed to get married or have children or have any like civilian rights in the country. And all of these things happened in the space of 10 years. And I just think that this green wave is not born of some like beautiful, amazing, wonderful country. I think it's born of a resilience of a people who had to deal with a lot of their own shit, you know? And so that's why I think it's happening, because for me, studying the history of all culture and all kind of arts movements and stuff, that makes the most sense. Like, if we talk about Paris, the 1890s was La Belle Époque. That was because all of the poor people got pushed into one tiny, tiny area of the city because the rest of it was all bulldozed down. And we built these very, very expensive, difficult to afford apartments. So all of the interesting poor people moved into this really intense space, and then it became trendy and wonderful, and there was all this amazing art, and it was such an amazing, exciting time. But all those people were like living in poverty and struggling and suffering a lot, and that was where the art kind of came from. And you see that like time and time and time again, like New York in the 1970s, those buildings were falling down, everybody was dying, but it was like, wow, the music's so good. Like this happens all the time. I definitely think when it comes to queer rights that maybe the country has become more tolerant, but also all of the queer people don't live in Ireland anymore. They don't live there. Like they live in London, and they live in New York, and they live in Canada, and they live in Paris. Like, you know, I'm one of 4 children, and 3 of them have emigrated. Like the only person living still in Ireland is my sister Noelle, but my brother Sean and my sister Roisin both live in Australia, and then I live in London. And like I would genuinely estimate that 30% of the people that I graduated school with no longer live in Ireland. So there's an element of maybe it is more tolerant, but also a lot of the Irish voices that we're hearing are not there anymore, are not in that country. All of the people we just mentioned, all of the famous people we just mentioned, with maybe the exception of Sally Rooney, do not live in Ireland anymore. And it's like, I just wish people were questioning it a bit more instead of just being like, isn't this great? Wow, Irish talent, so amazing. Irish talent is so amazing, but why did it happen?
Yeah, you recently said a fake version of Irish culture is being built by Americans and English people.
Yeah, this is what I got in trouble for this week.
Maybe can you explain us?
It's this thing of people romanticizing Irish culture. I think we really have to question where it's coming from and really who's pushing it. I think it's very easy for, you know, Irish food and art and fashion and culture to be becoming so trendy at this time. But it was definitely weird to be walking around New York. I made my last album in New York, and I was living there for 4 months. And at a time where Donald Trump is getting back into power, I'm walking around and there's all these like stout signs being erected outside pubs, like new trendy pubs, like we sell stout here and we sell scones here. And there's like a restaurant on Fifth Avenue called Mary's, and there's a half-an-hour queue to get like potato farls, which is like poor people food in Ireland, and it's like made by a real Irish woman, and she's really Irish and she's really making the food herself. I found it so bizarre, and I don't feel like enough people are questioning it. And I've gotten a bit of criticism already for talking about this kind of thing, and people keep calling me unpatriotic and saying I don't like Ireland, and that like everyone is within their rights to reclaim their Irish heritage after the 800 years of British oppression. I'm not denying that. I think it's amazing that the Irish language is coming back, and I've no issue with people wearing GAA jerseys, but who's doing it and why? It's like, I just wish people were thinking about it a bit more deeply and asking why in particular it's happening outside of the country of Ireland, because it doesn't seem to be happening on the island of Ireland. It's happening outside.
You should have a class in front of students. It's so interesting. Thank you.
I think Ireland is amazing. I think Irish people are amazing, and I think they're very resilient. No, I haven't met a lot of actors because I don't really do actor things, but I've definitely met all the musicians, because we all do this. Yeah, I've met the Fontaines a couple of times. I would know like Kneecap quite well. Like we've known each other for a couple of years because they speak Irish and I speak Irish, and I've always loved what they do and vice versa. You know, that whole thing is happening as well with them at the moment, which is crazy. The way that I have tried to incorporate all these feelings that I have about Ireland in the record, the way that I've tried to do it is from a very singular emotional perspective. So the song Euro Country, which opens up the record, is basically me telling the story of my childhood, which is like everything kind of crumbled around me at once, and all these men in the village started committing suicide at the same time that all these people were becoming homeless at a rate that they'd never become homeless before. And there was all these empty houses and all these like estates of empty houses everywhere that nobody could afford to move into. And I was just a kid watching all this, and I found it really unfair, because I was like, I think if we just try a little bit harder to make this a better country for everybody that wants to live here, I think we could do it. Why are people not making the effort? Whenever I wanted to make a point about something, you know, because I can talk in that lectury way about like my hypothesis, but you can't do that in art. You have to make it emotional and you have to make it singular. So anytime I had a point like that I wanted to make, I had to try and relate it back to my own life in some way, and my own life experience in some way. And I kind of hope I did that well on the record. I think I did. I tried to. But as a result, I think the most important language you can ever use in art is your colloquial language and the way that you talk to the people around you. And like, there's definitely a lot of Irishisms on the record. Like, my accent has never been stronger than on this record, and I kind of made a point of it because obviously I love country music and I love to sing with a little twang. Like, I do love to sing with a little twang because it's the music I love. But I was really, really clinical about like, I need my accent to be audible here, but I'd always like mask it in music beforehand, and now I'm kind of like letting it all out. I think I'd kind of always masked it so that people could understand my lyrics, because I was like, I really wanted to be legible and audible, and weirdly I think I've never been more understandable than since I started singing in my own accent a little bit more. Like, it definitely pops out way more on this record than it ever has before, because again, the thing I'm trying to bring home is like, the only reason I'm so critical of all of these aspects of the Irish psyche and identity is because I love it there so much, and I don't want it to fall to fascism like every other country seems to be doing at the moment. It's like my number one thing that I think about all the time, and like keeps me awake at night actually, is like, let's try and hound it to be a better place, but you have to like meet these problems head on if you're going to do that. I think that if you're really making art, I think if you're really, really making a piece of art, everything is visible in it. So when you make a record, it should be a record of the time. So even if you're writing a love song, right? Even if you're writing just like a love song about like, I love you, you love me, blah, 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 in the production, in the structure of the song, in the way the song is being delivered, in the language that is being used in the song, in the way the song has been recorded and the way the song has been put out, the politic is in there. The politic, even if it's minuscule and it's a very, very thin thread, it is in there. It inherently has to be. If you're responding to the real world and you're responding to real things that are happening, you kind of don't have a choice. Even if you're not making music that is outwardly political and you're not trying to make a point, if you look back on this record 40 years later, you could be like, oh yeah, this microphone was used because it was the most widely available microphone at this point in time, because at this point in time there was an embargo on blah blah blah, and this type of like, it will always be there. But even the choice to write a love song and the choice to be able to make a love song is a bit of a political one, because you don't always have that option in this life. Like, you don't always have the freedom to experience something as kind of honest and terrifying as love, because sometimes other things are happening in the world, and if you are privileged enough to be able to, you know, fall in love and experience romantic love and like spend effort on it, then in a way there is a politic in there as well, because it's all about choice and it's all about what you get over what this artist gets and what this artist gets. Everything is a record of the time, or should be a record of the time. So I don't think it's a choice. I don't know if you ever have the option of living in a vacuum. I think it's always there. I think so. Thank you. Thank you.